I've been living a lie. For the past year, I've been posting my music under a different identity. Someone else has been standing there on video, mouthing the lyrics that I wrote and I sang. And that snowballed into a whole project, a record deal, a tour opportunity, and an Instagram that is now twice as big as my own. And no, it's not AI, although there are a ton of comments who think that it is. And it's not a hired actor, and it's not just a random person off the street. That's Ted, my dad. And standing there with him is Matt, the dad of Low Effort, who is my bandmate and the producer of all the songs. Together, we are HADJI. You might be wondering, why the hell did we do this? What's the point? I mean, it's so much easier logistically to promote your music yourself. After all, what if it actually works and then you have to go on tour? Are you gonna go out like Milli Vanilli? No matter what happens, don't you feel bad that some people might be misled? Well, give me a chance to explain where I'm coming from, and maybe it'll start to make some sense. Because whether we expected it or not, making this project with our dads has been one of the most meaningful and rewarding experiences of my life. What started as one funny music video idea evolved into something that reinvigorated my love for making music at a time when I needed it the most. It became a part of a bigger conversation about age, image, expectations, chasing your dreams, and the value of family. So today, I'm going to take you through the journey so far, showing you how we managed to turn this silly idea into something bigger than itself. We have to start by acknowledging that we are far from the first artists to try to do something weird or outside of the box for attention. Musicians have tried all sorts of schemes and gimmicks on the internet to blow up. In the 2000s, artists took advantage of the new website YouTube, with bands like OK Go having viral and clever low-budget music videos, Soulja Boy using it to teach the whole world his dance, or Justin Bieber posting covers as a preteen on his way to becoming one of the biggest male pop stars of his generation. In the 2010s, it then became cool to be mysterious on the internet, as The Weeknd, Frank Ocean, J. Paul, and Earl Sweatshirt all showed us, albeit in very different ways. The 2020s are still going on, but there is one trend that I think we can already identify, and that's using visuals to emphasize the difference between the way an artist looks and how they sound. Around the turn of the decade, artists like RMR and Mustafa the Poet had music videos go viral where they contrasted softer and more melodic music with visuals you might associate with a rap video, like guys in ski masks or shots of project buildings. As the decade continued on, this type of juxtaposition became the new meta for artists like Forbats, Ian, and Sailor, who have all used the power of contrast to have clips of their performance go viral on social media. Funny I said contrast, that just made me think of another artist who does this, Contrast. I've talked about all these guys on here a little bit before, but if we go back a little bit further, there's another project that a lot of people have compared us to, and that's Pete and Boss. The British grandfather rap duo have been at it on the internet for almost a decade now, with a spryness to their raps that makes it hard for a lot of people to believe it's really them. So HADJI, our band, is something along those lines, except our dads aren't really the ones singing or making the music. They're a part of the band, but in a visual sense. I think of it like it's a quartet with 2 musicians and 2 actors. I mean, there were guys in Brockhampton that weren't making music, right? They're still in Brockhampton, you know what I'm saying? Saying they aren't performing feels like a disservice to the dads when you watch the way they act their asses off in the skits and the music videos. Our band is called HADJI because Jerome and I met as little kids at HADJI Little League in Queens, New York, where we both grew up. Over 20 years ago, so this has been a long time in the making. We wanted our project to feel like the world's borough, the very special place that both of us were lucky enough to grow up in. And who better to represent that than 2 dudes who have been here a lot longer than we have. But beyond the silly and attention-grabbing aspects of HADJI, this project has taught me so much about what it means to be an artist, and how important the way you present your identity is to sharing your music and connecting with a fan base. I'm excited to break it all down and show it to you guys, but before we talk about our identity, we need to talk about yours with the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by Aura. Have you ever heard of a data broker? They collect personal information on the internet from people like you or I, and then sell it to others so that they can bombard us with ads, emails, and propositions. Aura will help you remove your personal information from data brokers and people's search sites that can sell your info to identity thieves, scammers, and more. Aura monitors your personal data, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records, to alert you about potential identity theft. You'll get notified in minutes if your credit file has been compromised, like if someone tries to open credit cards or loans in your name. This is just scratching the surface of what you can get with Aura. There's Aura VPN, which protects your internet connection with military-grade encryption. There's antivirus services to secure your Android, PC, or Mac from malware, including viruses, spyware, trojans, ransomware, and more. There's a password manager to secure your online passwords safely and conveniently across apps. And there's a US-based support team available around the clock if anything goes wrong. You can get all this in one app at one affordable price. I'm not leaving myself or my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers. And if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/HADJI to try 2 weeks absolutely free. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data has been exposed. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. The Grammys just announced their nominations for 2026, and the internet, as usual, is abuzz with discourse and debate about who does and doesn't deserve their nominations. One of my favorite categories to laugh at is Best New Artist, which often features artists that are not that new. Last year, for example, Sabrina Carpenter was nominated after the success of her album Short and Sweet, which was her 6th studio album. After her new album this year, she either has as many albums as Outkast, who were just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or one more than them, depending on whether you count Speakerboxxx The Love Below as one album or two. Two of the other 2025 nominees, Ray, I think that's how you say that, Ray, I've never said that out loud, and the winner, Chappell Roan, had been in the major label system for close to a decade. For this year's nominations, the Marias stand out as a band who have been around for also almost a decade now. Lola Young is already 4 albums in. Are these artists really new? If you let the Grammys tell it, the award is, and I quote, "For a new artist who releases during the eligibility year, the first recording which establishes the public identity of that artist." That's pretty subjective, and I mean, I can tell you, I've been listening to the Marias since 2019, and I'm not trying to sound like some sort of hipster. I was not the only one doing that. I saw them play at a sold-out 1,800 capacity venue in New York like 3 years ago. But there is some truth in there. For many people, the clock on an artist starts the day they find them, not the day they first start putting out music. So if everybody heard Pink Pony Club for the first time in 2024, that's the year Chappell Roan started putting out music, 2024, as far as the world is concerned. And it can take a really long time for an artist to be discovered and appreciated by the world at large. Hey, they might be up there posting on Instagram Reels until they're 65. They taught us in school about all the great artists who weren't appreciated until they were already gone. Van Gogh, Monet, Bach, Kafka. For countless artists posting into the abyss on TikTok and Instagram Reels, they hope their day will come soon enough to be a Grammy's Best New Artist a few years too late, rather than end up on that much sadder list of artists who never got to know how popular they one day became. Despite the odds being stacked against them, a lot of artists just keep on posting. Scrolling on Instagram Reels or TikTok in 2025 will pretty quickly bring you to a musician begging you for attention. Maybe they're singing into a hanging mic, or asking you if they made the song of the summer, or if they should drop this song that they quote-unquote just made. Earlier this year, I did a video essay that remains the most popular video on this channel so far, Pushing 30, Ageism in Music. Something about the conversation about being too old to chase your dreams really struck a nerve with a lot of people. Whether it's a fear of being called unk on the internet, or the dread of seeing people you went to high school with get married and have babies while you're still emailing your songs to some blog that has like a 5% response rate. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, Zohran Mamdani was doing that a couple years ago and now he's the mayor of New York. Try that one out at the Thanksgiving table this year and let us know how it goes. As someone who has been posting their music onto the internet for almost a decade now, I was feeling the fatigue of chasing this thing that was really starting to feel impossible. I felt like my window was closing, and it was really starting to weigh on me as I was finishing up the 5th album that I've done since I started taking music seriously, Gut Punch. I had seen the game change in so many ways. From the tail end of the blog era, which I really grew up on as a music fan, to the Spotify playlist can change your life overnight era, to the 2019-2020 days of TikTok where I was like, oh no, that app's not for me. I don't do dances, which is like the musician version of having 100 Bitcoins in your cart in 2009 for like 20 bucks and being like, nah, I'm gonna go spend that on renting a movie at the Red Box outside my local 7-Eleven. I saw short form content slowly become the dominant way of reaching audiences to the point where a lot of people probably don't even remember what it was like before that. It felt like whenever I had finally started to figure out the latest thing, the latest way to get your music out there, the world moved on to something else. Like that one South Park episode where they play the game where they chase the dragon. But the thing is, I was getting a little bit closer to that bastard's tail every single time, so I just kept on going. Watching the industry change as I worked a day job as a high school math teacher, it felt like I could combine those two parts of me into one simple graph. You see, the x-axis here is age, and the y-axis is how much people are rooting for you. At the start, 18 or younger, the industry fawns over the possibility that you could be the next big thing, and connect with the youth demographic that they so desperately try to appeal to. But once you enter your 20s, and I'm speaking as a guy here, although there is a ton of ageism towards women in music too, you start to experience twink death, your Norwood 1 becomes a Norwood 2 or a Norwood 3, you get tired of bleaching your hair like a Brockhampton affiliate, and all of a sudden that appeal starts to bottom out. You would think it would just be an immediate downward slope from there, but hold on. Pete and Boss proved that people love rooting for visibly older people. There's something about these guys going all out and chasing their dreams later in life that makes people inherently want to support them. It creates this weird middle ground where people are a lot more likely to tell a 30-year-old that he's too old to be chasing his dreams than tell a 65-year-old. At the same time, if we have a second line on the graph that shows how good someone is at music, at least from my personal experience, it would look a lot more linear as someone got older. Maybe the growth starts to level off a little bit at some point, but it's hard to imagine someone getting worse at making music as they got older unless there were like extenuating circumstances like health issues or something like that. And so I found myself here on the scale, where my music making abilities were at their best so far, but my appeal to the industry and the ease of rooting for me was getting lower and lower. That album that I was finishing up, Gut Punch, was full of louder, more kind of rock-ish music, some of which I had made like years earlier, like 2021, 2022. I sat around waiting for the right time to drop it, only to learn that the right time to drop it was like 3 years ago. Still, it felt like I needed to get it out, and it was music that I did love. And in retrospect, I'm just as proud of it as anything else that I've put out. But I was working on this thing that my heart had long since moved on from, and as I was doing that, whether I realized it or not, I was starting something else new. Jerome, or Low Effort, is the first person I ever really made music with. We've been making music on and off, but mostly on since like 2014 or so, when we were making bad boom bap music together. I think each of us would probably say that our own contributions were what made it bad, but to be completely honest, my rapping was definitely worse than his beat making. But in the years since then, we've both grown a lot. I was working with a bunch of producers, finding my voice, making music in R&B, rock, hip-hop, indie. Rome was producing some of that, but he was also working with a bunch of other really talented New York artists. And above all, finding his own unique sound as a producer. You know that Low Effort produced it when you hear it. While we had songs out together, none of them really sounded like Elm Jack. They sounded like I Love Smoking Mid or Diamond in the Rough. They sounded like two friends having fun and making whatever they were inspired by in that exact moment. But in February 2024, we started a song called Closer Sober that changed everything. With the cool guitar tones, the R&B vocals, the weird pitching, we both quickly recognized that this wasn't necessarily a HADJI song. It was something new. And throughout 2024, we followed that down a road to what ended up becoming our project, Elm Jack. Rome and I have a lot of different loves and influences in music, but there's one that we definitely overlap on and share, and that's our love for R&B. Elm Jack is really our love letter to the genre in its own little way. I'm not the strongest natural singer, but I try to make up for it with really good songwriting and using my falsetto in interesting ways and trying to add character. Well, Rome shreds the guitar and the bass and all the production, even a lot of the drums, although shout out to Calder for playing drums on A Bother and Closer Sober because she bodied that. By the end of 2024, there was at least an unfinished version of every song on our project, Funk Tape, except for the last song. Some of them, like Closer Sober, Chemical X, Walk You Home, and A Bother, were all songs that we created with Elm Jack in mind. The others, like Maybe It's You and Get It How You Live, were actually HADJI demos that were then repurposed to fit into this world. Maybe It's You was like borderline hyperpop, sounds completely different.
Doesn't matter what the truth, maybe it's you.
And then Get It How You Live was just like a slightly sleepier bedroom R&B version of what it became today.
I get a little and I'm on my way. Like it's September and the sky is baby blue.
With the music in existence, we had to figure out how to release it. Rome and I were both 29 at that point. And while that's not exactly ancient, the music industry has a way of making you feel old pretty quick. We were both at that point in our careers where we were like, we gotta make it shake like right now, or we gotta consider if this thing that we're doing is always meant to be a hobby and maybe not a job. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There is something really beautiful about creating just for creating's sake and not worrying about whether it can end up paying your bills and feeding a family. Especially given that we were both born and raised in like one of the most expensive cities in the world. You know, like it really just makes that window even smaller. But mostly we just felt old and burnt. Or as you might say in 2025, chopped and unk. So the original idea was that the way that our dads looked on camera was how we felt at 29, still chasing our music dreams. But of course, they had to be down to actually be on camera. So we asked them, and I'm gonna let my dad tell you what his reaction was. He's in Greece right now, so I couldn't get him on camera, but he's sending in a voice note.
The initial reaction was, yeah, I mean, what a great idea. I was totally into it. Then when I started thinking about it more personally, I realized that it finally gave me a chance to be Archie. When I was a kid, when I was 6 years old, my uncle gave me a transistor radio, which is kind of one of the things that I think shaped my life. I would hide it under my pillow at night and play music into the night, every night for a couple of years, actually. There was a TV show called The Archies and a band called The Archies. They came up with a song called Sugar Sugar, which I believe made it to #1 hit, even though they weren't a real band. Actually, they were like the first AI band in a way. The Archies would get together on the stage and they would have their band all in a cartoon and they would be singing. And I kind of began to fantasize myself as being Archie. And my friends from school, being the guys in the band, it took me only a couple more years to realize that I didn't have the vocal talent to do that. But now fast forward all these years later, and I have an opportunity to lip sync and kind of get as close to being Archie as I possibly could. And so that was my reaction. I was psyched.
Even though he was down, the first song I gave him, Chemical X, was not the easiest song to sing.
The first one, Chemical X, I wasn't ready. It was the most difficult song, I think, to learn. We recorded it on a cold December day outside. I think it was good because it kind of exposed me to what I had to do. When we were done, I kind of knew what I had done wrong and what I had to work on, for the next one.
So you can see it in the video, the mouth movements and the lyrics, they don't exactly line up. There are even a few shots where you can see that he has the printed out lyrics in his hands, and we left it in because we think it's hilarious. And also, we never wanted Elm Jack to be like a hardcore secret. If people cared enough to look into it and see what was really going on, we wanted them to be able to figure it out. In fact, our first ever post, which remains up to this day, explains the concept. But the fact is, most people don't bother to scroll down. Or read the bio on Instagram where Jerome and I are clearly tagged. Or check Spotify where every single song is co-released on our solo artist pages as well. Some might chalk that up to how fried the internet has made us. Years and years of the radioactive sludge known as social media and the algorithm has made us incapable of being media literate and reading further into things. And this is kind of a shock for someone like me who grew up idolizing artists like Frank Ocean and watching them build a staircase, or trying to figure out where Earl Sweatshirt was when he was in boarding school in Samoa. Fans were incentivized to dig deeper and find out things about their favorite artists. Today, the sheer overflow of information that we're just constantly bombarded with makes it so that most people aren't interested in looking that far into anything. Back in the day, you might have seen 2 or 3 new artists on a blog. Today, you can find that many in 15 seconds as you swipe through the algorithm, to say nothing of all the other videos that might pop up and take your attention away. We're all just so overwhelmed. But so with our dads in tow, we released 5 songs. 2 of them we were really lucky to work with other really talented artists. Dende on Get It How You Live, really incredible R&B singer. He's the man. Go check out his projects. He's also really great at building out concepts, so you should follow along with him if you really enjoyed following the Elm Jack story. And Just End. If you like Elm Jack's music, I promise you'll really like Just End's music because Rome produces a lot of it as well. Just End is incredibly talented. Another awesome New York artist, puts out great music all the time, so go check him out too. And then in early June, we planned for our big swing. We took our song Get It How You Live and we did a From the Block performance in Queens with my dad. You know, the hanging mic video that Forbats and Ian and Sailor all kind of blew up off of. And I had hoped that getting on that platform would be our real big moment because it worked so well for all the artists that I was kind of trying to follow the strategy for. And the video did well and the song did well, but it didn't necessarily change our lives overnight. But it was a necessary step forward. And it kind of taught me something because these songs and these videos, they were great. And we were slowly reaching people, but I've realized that the way that we were posting with just kind of these high quality music clips all the time, it wasn't getting it done. Something was missing and we needed to be more down to earth. And so for most artists, they can just flip their phone camera around and make some low budget content about their songs. But Elm Jack is kind of a unique situation. People think it's our dads, so I needed my dad to be doing that. And my dad is not the most technologically savvy guy out there. And even if he was, I don't think he would know necessarily what kind of videos he needed to make, at least not without a lot of training. So to start, when we were doing our photo shoot, I had them film some TikToks together. And we immediately saw a really positive response to that. So from there, my dad and I would go around filming videos in our neighborhood. And we eventually got to a teach a man to fish kind of strategy where my dad was filming some of these videos by himself. And I'm definitely very proud of him for adapting to the technology and learning how to be a part of it. As I was getting all these videos, I started committing to posting once a day on TikTok and once a day on Instagram Reels. And that's where we had our biggest breakthrough moment. This one reel from July of my dad riding the subway while singing along to the song Closer Sober, the song that started it all. Today, the clip has over 600,000 views on Reels with 42,000 likes. We gained over 10,000 followers in just like 2 or 3 days. Legendary artists were reaching out to us, following, commenting, DMing with us. And I don't want to name drop too much, but I was DMing with people that I grew up listening to, the types of people who made me want to make music in the first place. And all it took was me pretending it was my dad singing. With that momentum, we were able to link up with an indie label called Broke Records for the EP. And with them on our side, I wanted to take the promotion to the next level. We needed even more personality. So I started having my dad read these funny one-liners that would cut into performance videos. And this led to a few more bangers. Here are a couple examples. Maybe speaking from my own experience here, but as a musician, I didn't think too much about the fact that social media is really not driven by likes and comments anymore. Like TikTok and Instagram are all about sharing. Like you send videos to your friends. And making music content that's shareable is a lot different than making music content that's like likable or commentable. Do you know what I mean? It has to be something that incentivizes you to send something. Like, if you know a damn killer, like the send this to an Asian baddie videos, like the reason why that dude does so well is because everybody is sharing those videos with their friends. And these Elmjack videos, these little funny one-liners, like I didn't even necessarily think about it in the moment, but now in retrospect, I realized one of the reasons why they do well is because they're shareable. Like, people want to send them to their friends. And I think that's the sweet spot for making videos in 2025, although knowing the internet, I'm sorry, but it'll probably change like next week. And when we first set out to do that Chemical X video, I'm not sure that we had a plan for how things would go. But as we worked closely with our dads on these videos and these songs, we realized that we were kind of onto something special here. It wasn't just about the gimmick of seeing an older guy sing a song that you might expect a younger guy to sing. It became a bigger story about passing on the things that we love from generation to generation. Both Jerome and I were lucky to have dads who were just great in general, but also instilled a love for music in us at a really young age. Jerome's dad is a great guitarist, and I remember being over there as a kid and Jerome's dad would just be ripping the clarinet. Like, the dude loves music. I think he genuinely could play the guitar parts on Elmjack if he wanted to. My dad had me listening to all sorts of cool music as a kid, got me an iPod at a really young age, and I genuinely think that kind of shaped the path for the rest of my life. So it was really special giving our dads the chance to be a part of this bigger thing. And if I had to guess why the project resonated with other people, so much more than any other project I've been a part of in my career, it's because it works no matter what level you get involved with it at. And what I mean by that is if you just want laughs on social media, you don't want to look any further, then you laugh at the little one-liner, you might even get a good song at the end of it, maybe you save it, but then you just kind of move on, you don't think too hard about it. But for the people who click further and look deeper, they find this whole story, this whole father-son plotline, and it becomes this bigger thing. And so it allows people to be engaged with it at any level possible. And in 2025, there are going to constantly be people who are engaging with it at different levels. They'll find it for the first time that day. They'll have been following from the beginning. They'll realize the whole gimmick like halfway through following. Like, there are people who will be at different stages at all times because that's just the way things are in 2025. And on social media in 2025, I think that kind of stands out in a way because a lot of other music content kind of feels like a commercial. And to be honest, especially in my solo work, I was definitely guilty of making content that probably just felt like a commercial to the watcher. I would post without understanding that if I wanted to just show off a song, that wasn't necessarily going to be that engaging. I needed to entertain and give people a reason to buy in. So if there's a lesson that I learned from Elmjack that I can give to anybody else watching who is a musician or even just has any kind of like creative pursuit and they want to share it with the world better, like, try creating a world for it and work backwards and think about what would make you stop scrolling, what would make you laugh, what would make you want to send the video to your friends. Once you think like the audience and kind of imagine what it is that they want to see, it becomes a lot easier. One fascinating thing that the Elmjack project has taught me is that while people love to say that they don't care what an artist looks like, they only care what the music sounds like, I'm not so sure how true that is. Whether it's like a conscious decision or it's more of a subconscious thing where you're just drawn to things that maybe don't look how you expected them to or look aesthetically pleasing or something like that, you know? At a time when so much music discovery is driven on video platforms, like, of course you're gonna care what somebody looks like and what's being presented to you. And it does become a little bit of a chicken or the egg thing because you're like, the videos get pushed out to more and more people because other people are stopping and watching them. That's how the algorithm works. So it becomes like a positive feedback loop. But I do find that interesting, and it is something that I would love to dig further into in other ways and explore the psychology of how an artist looks and how fans perceive that. And we can get to the elephant in the room when we talk about social media in 2025. There is no AI involved in Elmjack at all. Of course, we get so many comments accusing us of that, and I understand, because in 2025, that's where we're at. But what's funny is, in 2024, we weren't really there yet. So when we started doing this project, like, generative video AI, Suno, and whatever, like, they weren't good enough to have been the Elmjack project. And it's scary how close they are getting. I mean, there are people in my life who didn't know that that was my dad until, like, yesterday. Right? Because they would just see the post and be like, wow, that looks like you with like an older guy AI filter over your face. And I mean, that really says how strong the genetics are, right? But nonetheless, it is still very frustrating to have people accuse our hard work of being AI. And if you're a musician who is thinking about making content and is like, maybe I should get into AI visuals, like, I can't stop you from doing it. But one thing that I will say is the internet has a lot of that already, and I think if you're able to make something genuine and cool that's not AI, it has a better chance of standing out. Do you know what I mean? And don't be afraid if an idea takes a few months to a year to catch on. Like, we started posting Elmjack in January, and we didn't really go like viral until like July. And I was posting almost like every day. It took a while before people started to see the vision. And I can tell you, and this is not in like an I told you so kind of way, like I was having conversations with labels, managers, those types of people, you know, in 2024, explaining the concept of Elmjack to them. And they'd be like, oh yeah, no, whatever. Yeah, sounds cool, blah, blah, blah. And they wouldn't really show interest. They wouldn't follow up. They wouldn't like invest. People don't see the value in something until it starts to show its value in front of them. And it's unfortunate, but that is also just the way things go now. So all I'm saying is don't let that stop you from trying. So our EP Funk Tape is out in the world now. 7 tracks, 6 originals, 1 cover of Anthony Hamilton's Charlene, which is a song I love so much, and we were really excited to put our own spin on it. And in case you're wondering, this is not a one-off project. Rome and I are already hard at work on the next batch of Elmjack tracks. We did these skits that added Rome and I as characters to the universe, which I definitely recommend checking out. As 2 guys who are forced to make music for their dads, just kind of trying to flip like what I imagined a lot of people would say about Elmjack, which is like, oh, they're using their dads to get famous. And it's like, I thought it would be fun to just turn that around and have the dads be the ones using us. So we're going to continue that plot line. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that doesn't mean that there won't be solo HADJI music as well. In fact, I have a song coming out later this month, November 28th. Also happens to be my 30th birthday. So I'm really excited for that song. I think you guys are going to like it a lot. And I can't wait to apply the things that I've learned about storytelling and world building from Elmjack to the HADJI universe as well. And we have some fun news. You'll be able to see us, Elmjack, live on tour this year in the United States, opening for this awesome indie band Last Dinosaurs. We're playing like 20-something stops. Tickets are available now. And you might look at that poster and say, oh, where's New York? Well, good news. If you're in New York, we're going to have a special New York show in January. Not announced yet, but stay tuned for that. On the tour, yes, it's going to be the sons. It's not going to be the dads. But you can expect them to be involved in some sort of creative way. And if you're in New York, who knows? Maybe you'll get to see them. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting our band. Let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.